Hi everyone, welcome to Pixelcorps Live, or Inside the Black Box Live. This is Alex, and this is Kevin Hansen.
Hello.
And we're going to be talking about green screen today. So a lot of people, you can see a little bit of it right over there. We shoot a lot of green screen, and we teach about green screen. And there are some very basic things to understand about how it works that hopefully will make a difference in your next green screen project if you have one, or just make it more interesting if you just want to know how it works. So one thing to remember is that if you're watching this, you're probably watching it on pixelcorps.com/live. Remember that you can ask questions. So go to there's a little button to push over there, and what you want to do is either vote questions up and down or ask them. You can, of course, any email, anything that looks like an email will work. But just remember what it is. It's easier if you actually use your own email. But we're just using that as a unique identifier. But go ahead and sign up there. And then what you can do is you can ask your own questions, or you can vote other people's questions up and down. We're going to go through those questions. So if you have questions about green screen, if you have those types of questions, or about Conduit, which we're going to talk a little bit about tonight, that's the place to post them. And as a reminder for the Pixelcorps members, this is not linked to your ID for Pixelcorps. So make something else up. It's not this is not a single sign-on just yet. So we're working on that. Anyway, so we're going to get talking about it, and of course, so green screen is something that is becoming more and more useful. It's becoming more and more something that people want to be able to do. And the great thing is that the cameras are getting a lot better. So you're actually able to get much higher quality footage than what you used to be able to do. But the issue that you get into, of course, is that a lot of people still don't know how to do it. And so now, I wouldn't say that we're the world experts in green screen compositing, but we do enough of it that we have.
We hold our own.
Yeah. So and we're not. But again, and this is what we're going to talk about tonight, is a real controlled version of this. So there's a lot of times you'll see green screens that are in movies where the green screens are all different colors, and they're not very close, and they're not perfect. And there's a lot of reality around that. There's a reality of we didn't have that many screens, or we had to buy the screens or rent the screens from a couple different locations. Or, like for instance, today we're going to talk about the easy way to do it. Another episode we'll talk about harder issues. But today we're not going to show you the feet. So the feet are the thing that is one of the more difficult things. We're going to show you what a lot of people should be thinking about, and that is knees up, shins up. Or waist up kind of compositing. This is where, if you're doing education, learning, corporate, a lot of TV, a lot of those things, you don't need to see people's feet or even much of their lower torso, past the torso. And so in that world, you should have a pretty good screen. There's not any good reason to have not. It may not be perfect. The screen we're going to show you tonight is not perfect, but it should be within reason. When you're working on it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get in front of the screen, and I'm actually going to, and Kevin's going to drive, and we're going to talk about a couple different aspects of the screen. So here we go. I'm going to walk over here and into the, so here we are, and if you look at it here, we've got in fact, I'll show you a little bit about what we have going on here. This is our, of course, these are the keynotes that we're using. Now these are 4x4s, but and these are keynotes. They're 4-foot bulbs, and there's four bulbs of each one. We're only using 2. We've got some up here. We're not using those. So the ones that are up higher, we're not using them yet. They're still in research and development. We're trying to get just the right coloration. But we have these two 4-foot ones on either side. Now here's the thing about this. We're using Kineflows. Because the rate of, they're some of the best lights to use to light a screen. A nice long source is going to give you a much more even display of light across both of these areas. And so Kineflows tend to work out well. These long lights tend to work out extremely well. A lot of people try to use little, round lights. Spotlights to do their green screen. It's really hard to get that done well. So one of the things you want to think about is these long lights. Now, the Kineflows, what you're paying for are the ballasts. The ballasts are these little boxes that are over in the corner there. These ballasts are what's really powering these. I mean, of course, they're nice fixtures and everything else. You can buy the bulbs separately, though. And the bulbs are about $25 each. you can go to a Home Depot and buy 4-foot fixtures and put these bulbs in. And these bulbs, what makes them different, these ones are green. So these are, I believe they're called, are they super green? Is that right? Is that what they call them? Or green? Anyway, so these are the, sorry?
525 nanometer green.
525 nanometer green. And that's what we're using here. Now, what that means is that we're doing green on green, which makes the green really pure. And we'll talk about what that means in a second. So anyway, so we have the, so that's what we're using here. Again, you can use these at home with cheaper fixtures. These are about $1,000 a fixture to make that work. And if you're doing a lot of work and you want it to be just right, and you know what happens when you're starting is that equipment is expensive. What happens when you get really going and you're doing a lot of it? Labor is expensive. so what you want to, you start buying better equipment to reduce the amount of hours that you're spending on it yourself or the amount of hours you're paying someone to do it. So that's the thing to kind of keep in mind as you're starting to work through. So we've got them on C-stands here. Got them going across. This green, we're using composite components green. So that's what we're using through here. And this is we find that composite components green is the only way to go, in our opinion. We've tried all the other paints, the hardware paint, the Rosco paint, the many other people that make paint. And for our purposes, we haven't found anything that keys as well as the composite component green. And we think that there's something magical in it because even if we take this patch and get a hardware version that looks like this, doesn't key as well. And I think that has to do with, I personally think it has something to do with infrared light, but I'm not sure. But we've really found that this works really well. And so it's a little bit more expensive. And this is about 4 or 5 coats of it. So not of it. We start with a base primer, then we put green primers, and then we finally put the expensive stuff on at the very end. So that's kind of how we do that. You can also get, of course, you can get seamless green paper, which is a lot easier to use if you use these green bulbs because they are going to be, they make almost everything great. In fact, you can almost key someone over a white wall with these green bulbs. So something to think about. So that's how this is all set up for a very basic setup. And if you were doing an interview or a stand-up or so on, this would be the kind of the way to actually make that happen. And so if you want to do a little piece there. So of course, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk forward. One of the things you're going to notice is that now I'm walking into a new set of lights. So you can see how I wasn't lit up here. Notice I wasn't standing right back here. I'm actually standing a good 10 or 15 feet in front of that green screen. Now, you can't always get 10 or 15 feet away from that green screen, but as best you can, you want to get as far away from that green screen as possible. And the reason for that is, of course, you want to make sure that you are, getting the further away you are from the green screen. This green screen here is a big light that is building a big diffuse green that's coming out at you. And if it comes down on you, when I'm back here, the diffuse light coming off of this is coming down and around me, and it's creating some spill. I'm also picking up some stuff from the lights here. I can't use the green lights on myself. As I move forward to here, now I'm in a whole new set of lights. I can now control the exposure, so I can expose myself or whoever the host is. I can expose them individually and have a whole different set of lights exposing the background. And that's a huge advantage. Now, you don't always get to do that. Sometimes you're going to be in a situation where you have to, someone's on the green screen. This green screen that we have, this is a cove, so this actually curves, comes out, then comes out to about here. So we can peel up this floor and shoot it if we need to. So anyway, so that's the basic setup that you have for the green screen. Now we're going to talk a little bit about scopes. So Kevin, can we pull up, so here, what you're going to see here is this is Conduit, and Conduit is our, is what we use on set, Conduit Live, and there's a couple different versions of Conduit. There's some that we put into Final Cut and Motion and other tools, and then this one is the live one. So this is actually a live feed going into a Mac Pro, and what these are the RGB Parade. Kevin, can we go back to the Luma for a second? So this is the first thing you want to look at here. Now this is the Luma scope, and what this is showing us is just pure brightness. Now if you look at, it's great when you see a video right next to it so you can see what's going on. If I walk into this, that's me. You can see me kind of, there's my arms, and I'm doing the thing you shouldn't do, which we're going to test, is I'm actually wearing a green shirt in front of a green screen. but I think we're going to be okay. Now, so you can see that there's some separation there. Now, what I'm looking for when I'm setting up a screen is I want that to be as level as possible. So if we look at this here, this area, you know, in the scope. Let me see if I can do this. I want to do this. There we go. Look at this. This area in the scope. You see this? I want this line, that line, to be very, very level. The more level that is, what that means is that I'm actually. It means that my lighting is very, very, very uniform across the entire back green screen. The more uniform that is, the less work your keyer is going to have to do. The reality is, if you get a good key, this is the dirty secret, is that if you get a good solid lighting on your background, almost anything can key it, so that's something to kind of keep in mind. So now go ahead to the RGB Parade. Now, the RGB Parade is the same scope that you saw before, except for this scope is actually it breaks out the brightness in the red, the green, and the blue. And so what you want is as much separation between the red and the blue and the green as possible, because the green is what you're trying to get rid of. And the further apart it is, you know, it's kind of like if you know, you got someone who's got the you know, the hero is trying to, you know, I was going to use a very violent reference that probably isn't good for one of these things. You know, but you want people to be separated. you want to get this stuff separated out. So what you want is that green to be as far away from the red and the blue so that you can actually make sure that you want those to be as far away as you can so that you can easily get rid of the green without damaging the red and the blue. Now, the reason that red and blue, if you do this at home with white lights, this is not going to be as clean as this. The green lights are depressing that red and blue a lot further than normal. Now, the thing that generally what you're looking for is about 40 points. If we go back to the scopes for a second, what you're looking for here is what you want to get to is about 40 points between the green and the next closest color, in this case red. You know, if you can do that, you're really going to get an optimum. It's going to be hard to pull a bad key. So anyway, so that's the basic setup. And if you keep that line, if you keep that separation, green generally is at 70% is what you're looking for. Blue, if you're shooting blue screen, you're nuts. So anyway, no, it's fine. You can shoot blue screen if you want. I won't make any more fun of you. But the only time to shoot blue is if you have something that's really green that you have to shoot a blue. If you have a mascot or something that's a logo that's green. But outside of that, blue carries all of the grain, all the junk, everything else. The blue record in your camera is carrying all of that along with it. 70% of the signal ends up in the green channel. So you can either have a nice clean signal or a really nasty signal, and it is going to affect the quality of your final key. So green screen, we used to shoot a lot of blue screen. Partially was because when blue spilled, it wasn't nearly as nasty as green. Green spill can be a little bit nasty, but the reality is most keying software today is actually very, very powerful, all the way down to, I mean, the keyer that sits inside of iMovie is actually very powerful, and definitely, you know, and can take the kind of footage that we're shooting here and key it perfectly. So it's something to kind of keep in mind. So we're going to go ahead and look at the screen here, and so what we're doing here is we're going to, what you're going to see here is Kevin is looking at this. Now, what this is a nodal composite, and we like nodes. Node compositing is, it's actually, if you've never learned how to do it any other way, it is actually the easiest way to composite, in my opinion. Because what's happening is everything is an operation. So it says, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this over here, and then I'm going to bring it back over here. It's kind of like telling a story. First, there was a green screen, and then this green screen had a color had to be color separated, and then it went into the unspill, and further down the road, and in another track, the background was forming, so, and all of this stuff comes together to a great conclusion. So what we have here is the node. So here you can see that top node that's there is this top node up here is the input. Now this next one that you see down right below it is the color difference. So there it is. Now all this is really simple. This is simply subtracting. Basically, it takes the red and the blue and it mixes them together, and then it subtracts them from the green. Now, why would it subtract? And when I say subtract, I'm not talking about complicated, any kind of complicated math here. What I'm talking about is simply it is a raw subtraction of 0 to 1. So if red and blue and green, if the mixture of red and blue is 1 and green is 1, then it's going to be 0 because you're subtracting 1 from 1. If the red and blue is near 0, which we saw on those levels that were there, the red and the blue are near 0. When they subtract it from the green, they won't have much effect. And that's why this area around me, this gray area, that's why that gray area is all gray and not black. And that's why I'm black, because there was a little bit of red, blue, and green in all of the stuff. If something's white, if it's a neutral color, it has even amounts of red, blue, and green, or it might even have more red and blue than green. This green was almost all green. So you're subtracting zeros out here from 1, or 70%. And we're subtracting higher numbers with me, and that's why I turned black. Now what we have to do here is we have to invert this to create a proper alpha channel. So go ahead and connect that, Kevin. So Kevin's going to drag that down. And there I am. So now we've inverted that image. So now that image looks a little bit more like an alpha channel that you'd probably be used to. And so we've created this, and we're doing this live. It's all, and this is how we kind of do stuff on set to make sure that this key is actually working. So now go ahead and just, what you're going to see over on the side here is an unspill. Now this is kind of some of the secret sauce here. So go ahead, Kevin, why don't you go ahead and pull the output, and then click on the unspill first. No, go ahead and do that before you add. Don't add the color difference. Just double click on that. So the idea is I'm surrounded by green here, and the problem that I have is that I am in this green is not what I'm going to be standing in front of. I need to neutralize it so that I don't have any green spill at all. So what we need to do is go ahead and use that raw math that we created before to identify where that green is. So go ahead and connect that. Now nothing happened. Not as exciting as I was expecting. No. So what we need to do is we need to move what we're going to do is we're going to lower the green channel, but we're using the raw mat to attenuate that. So we're making the green channel a little darker. Go ahead and make it a little darker, Kevin. Let's bring it down to maybe 55%. And make sure that the scopes are set to output. Yep. And so what we have to do here is, let's see. I think you're looking at scopes. I think that what are you looking at here? That is.
One moment. There we go.
There we go. New set of scopes. We can be. There's a lot of windows here. So there's the this is the actual output, and then we'll go ahead and look at the RGB parade. There we go. So now what you'll see is when Kevin moves this up and down, you can see he's moving the green, but notice I'm down here. You see my body? That's where my body is in this correction. And he's moving that green down, but it's not affecting my values at all. It's just affecting the green because it's using that raw math that we created. So go ahead and bring that down to about 55%, Kevin, or yeah, somewhere there. And then bring the reds up. So what he's going to do is he's going to move the red up to match the green. There you go. And then move the blue up. You see, I'm not getting changed at all, but that whole surrounding, by making red, green, and blue even, it's now gray. And I still retain the color. Because it's using that raw mat to attenuate that information. So now we've got that there, and now we'll go ahead and Kevin also has to increase the contrast a little bit. So go ahead and, so what he's going to do, you see this, there's a little bit of, the technical term for it is schmutz. So there's a little bit of schmutz here that we have to get rid of. So we have to increase the contrast just a little bit. And so you can see him increasing that contrast to create a cleaner, just pushing the blacks down ever so slightly. And then also bringing the whites. You don't have to push the whites up at all, really, to get that composite working. Right. And then we can go into the over. Let's go ahead and drop it into the over. And that's basically this 3 nodes says, give me the foreground, put it over the background, and use this mat that you can see right now as a way to attenuate it. And so here you can see a live. This is your live key. And so this is keying the information live. And this is how we kind of test stuff. So if we're in front of a set and we want to see how it's all going to turn out before we get started, this is what we're going to do. Yeah, you can go ahead and you were playing around with a little bit. Okay, and Kevin's playing around with a little bit with my exposure, my blue exposure, to make me fit in maybe a little too blue.
Right.
I'm feeling oh so blue. Anyway, so this is the basic, the very basic composite. And as I said, you're looking at this as kind of a live feed, and the idea here is to be able to. We use this a lot for testing, and you'll see some behind the scenes of us using it. So when we're on set, we know that if we have this key, it may not be absolutely perfect. It's not bad, but it may not be absolutely perfect. But we know that it is good enough that we're going to come out the other end. And it also is great when you're trying to match lighting. So we're trying to move these lights around. We're not trying to do that today, but we're trying to move these lights around and match it just to the background. Having them composited live really speeds up that image, that process while you're on set. So that's one of the things that we're kind of focused on. I'm going to go over here and see if we've got any questions as we're working through here. Again, if you have questions, and one thing you want to notice is, let me show off just a little bit. Can you go back to that key? Is that key still on? Let's see here. And if you have questions, make sure to go up to the make sure to click the link and pop those questions in. The one thing to notice is even though it's live, we can actually get a pretty good key. Kevin, can you go to the? So this is a glass of water, and hopefully, we didn't really test this very well, so we're going to see how this goes. So let's go ahead and give that a shot. So there you can see the key, and you can even see the little white logo that's on the front, and there you can see it there, and there you can see it inverted. And so it's able to pick up that information fairly effectively. And then if Kevin goes ahead and shows you the comp, so there it is. So, this is all live. This is what's possible today. Is you can actually get a fairly good. You can see the logo still there. There's a lot of bits there. So this is it's a pretty useful thing. And I'm a little thirsty myself. And so anyway, so that's how good this live key can get nowadays. So anyway, so let me go back here. Carolyn, do we have any questions popping up? Okay, so for some reason, hold on, I think I need to turn off my my Wi-Fi. I always forget that. I've kind of, it's funny, you get used to 3G, or you get used to, I find Wi-Fi, unless I'm really trying to download something fast, I find it to be much less stable than my 3G connection. So, okay, so we've got a couple things here. So, a few of the questions that we have coming up here is, do the special green bulbs work with most fixtures or just Kinoflows? I've used Kinoflow fixtures, and the answer is they do work in other things. Sometimes you want to get a better ballast, but you can definitely put the green bulbs. These are just, they really fit into any fluorescent fixture that we've used that's 4 foot long. And there's been times where I've had to go to a variety of different places and just buy or even just take bulbs out of the hardware store, but the green ones do work. Conduit controlling DMX out or similar. So I'd like to know if there's a cheap possibilities to control via DMX or similar sort of motor drive attached to the camera to be able to have a motorized head, creating a simple virtual set with panoramic images. Conduit does have some DMX I/O, and I haven't used it too heavily. So, and I think it's mostly for lighting. It's not so much for the DMX that's there is not really designed to do exactly what you're doing. There are some virtual sets, and the name Lightcraft. Lightcraft is a virtual set. It's not cheap, but it's a very powerful virtual set system, and that's the one that we would probably suggest. Another question that we have here is, could you please talk about the feature that is now in Conduit 3D, which is the node that is the Kinect, so for Microsoft Kinect. And that is still under development, and so it's in the beta that obviously you're playing with. But it basically, the intention of that Kinect is to actually let you not only composite based on green screen or other things, but based on depth. And so it's something that Polly, who writes the software and is a super geek, put in there, and we're still in the process of testing that. So that's what. And if you're interested in getting Conduit, if you're interested in downloading a test of it, downloading a beta, is the beta still on the site? You can go to dvgarage.com. That's DV Delta Victor Garage.com. And as a statement, I mean, I am the founder of that company too. So anyway, so that's but that's the product, and we have a 3D beta that's out, and we also have plugins for Motion and Final Cut. In fact, we're going to show you some of that in action as we walk through some of the visual effects shots that we did for a Japanese movie about a year ago. So, so you can use it. We use it a lot. We built it really for ourselves, and then we just made it more available to help offset the cost of building it. So it was one of those things that we were trying to figure stuff out, and we met Polly, who's the programmer, and he he was already working on this. It was just kind of the right time, so we collaborated with him to put this product on the market and to use it ourselves. And so it's something that we use a lot internally. You can see this live stuff. We don't go onto a live set without that process. By the way, though, if you're interested in just the scopes and you're not interested in the compositing, there's another great program for about $99 called Scopebox by Divergent Media, and it's great. It looks prettier. In fact, if I was only using scopes, I'd probably use Scopebox. It's just much more focused. There's not a lot of nodes and a lot of stuff to figure out. The scopes work great in Conduit, and we're quite happy with them. But that's another option to look at. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go over and take a look at some work that we did, some more compositing work, and Kevin worked tirelessly on this. Now I was actually in Japan. This is Memoirs of a Teenage Amnesiac, and I was I was brought over as a visual effects consultant. So my job was mostly to say, no, that's not going to work, and no, that really won't work, and no, we can't do that. And I didn't say it enough.
Well, that's not what I hear. I hear stories of not quite tantrums, but when things weren't set up quite right. You saved us a lot of work.
I may or may not have threatened to burn the green screen down. It had stains on it, and I had already rejected it a couple times before, and there was a little bit of a problem where we came back to it, and I was like, if that's not replaced by lunch, I'm going to pull out this lighter, and it's Lycra, and I was like, I'm just going to light this thing up, and it was changed by lunch.
Well, we who pull all the keys, thank you.
So we did get pretty good keys. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you a couple of the scenes of what we worked on here. So go ahead and play this out. And Memoirs of a Teen Amnesiac, we worked with Hans Canosa and Kwesi Collison. Now, Kwesi was the VFX supervisor, and this is Hans here, who was the director, and I thought did a great job at this movie. And you can get this. I think it's on Amazon now, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, so you can get this on Amazon. It's all in Japanese. We shot on F-23s, and so this is here is the F-23 totally rigged out and ready to shoot. You can see a nice big airy gearhead at the bottom, something that I'm kind of lusting after. But anyway, go ahead. And here you can see another picture of the F-23 kind of logged in. And we had we typically had two of these, or we had a 950 as a second camera as well. So here's just a behind the scenes real quickly of what one of the shots look like. So this is a Fisher Dolly sitting on top of a circular track, and you've got a giant flag there to control some of the light. And it was even though it had to look like May, it was not May. It was December, and it was freaking cold. So you can see us all in jackets, and then you can see our heroine in her skirt, which she was in this big long coat, and then she'd jump right out and do this and try to act like she wasn't freezing, and then jump back into the coat. So here is the shot. This is what this shot looked like, and so this is the and so here you can see that's moving around it's going to start moving around the circular track in a second. So they're taking their little photos. Now a lot of this is near the end, and so the idea was you could kind of see these photos composited. This was kind of the direction that they wanted, was to have. Now that was just one photo, but she'll start taking more photos here. And they're going to start taking pictures of each other. And a lot of this was this is near the end of the film. I'm kind of doing a spoiler on you. So here's that circular track. So now our job here was to composite those not in green screen, but composite all those images behind them, track them, make sure that they were all lining up just right. And go ahead and go to you were going to say something?
And that was a very hard track.
Right.
There were so few points in common throughout the entire rotate. I mean, because it was a rotating shot, there weren't enough points in common at any given time. It was just a very hard track. There were a lot of bumps. Not a lot to log on to.
Yeah, yeah. So so anyway, so here's another shot here, and we're going to show you. We're going to break down some of these shots, but this is a green screen that we had to have outside. We did about 105 car shots, I think. So there's a lot of this, and we decided, and we'll show you some plates. We decided to actually that's what that plate actually looked like there, so you see that. If you back up, can you go back to the frame before? You see that guy holding the light there? He's holding a light panel that's on a battery. Or I don't even think it was on a battery. And that is the interactive light. So go back forward to the next one, and you'll see this light go by. Let's see if I think, yeah, there it is. That's the light panel. That is actually, that was how we created all of our interactive light, is having some guy swing the light panel back and forth. And it worked fine.
I think so. Not having to do it in post was a big deal.
Yeah, yeah, that was definitely worth it. So so anyway, so go ahead and so here's the actual shot here, and so here you can see the key. And this was all. And I said Kevin's going to break one of these down, but this was all composited actually in motion, but with conduit. You could never do this in motion by itself, but with conduit. Now here's another green screen shot. Some of the stuff was done indoors, and here you can see the lighting that was kind of set up. Go ahead to the next. One here. This is what conduit looks like on set. That's Kwesi Collison, the visual effects supervisor in the background there. And here's what you can see. You can see the composite. So that's our live composite that we were using on set to make sure that, I took some of those plates and just to make sure that we were getting what we expected. Go ahead. And this is a black frame. I don't think this is anything. There we go. So this is a lot of times we were grabbing green screens wherever we could. So we would have, we were doing so many setups as fast as we possibly could. And sometimes we were shooting at the school, and what we would do is simply grab onto, we would just, let's put up a green screen and shoot some plates for something else. And so that's what this is here.
Why?
And we would kind of, set up all day and shoot some of the stuff. The hard part was getting these actors. These are some of the larger actors in Japan.
So looking at the actor in front of the green screen, I think I recognized that shot. He was available, but the other two actors in the same scene weren't available, and we had to match the background for him to match the background of the other actors, which were actually at the real location, but he was not at the real location.
Yeah, and I think we have some of those clips a little bit later.
We do?
Yeah, so we'll cut you back into that. So go ahead and here's another, and this is actually her in the same prop. This is the other half of that shot.
It is a half of one of the beach shots, yes.
Right. So they're actually on the beach. I know it doesn't look like the beach, but they're on the beach. Go ahead. And so this is actually them. This is another live composite. This is what you can see. On one side is the actual feed out of the F-23, and on the other side on my little laptop is a live composite from Santa Monica and being composited live. And so this is what it looked like on set when we were kind of checking things. This is where live compositing on set, whether you're using conduit or you're using a mixer or using, it doesn't have to be a perfect key, but having that live mix makes a huge difference in being able to make sure your lighting's matching. Go ahead. So here's that shot. And the thing to remember is that they are shot in Japan separately. So they were shot about 2 weeks apart, and they are in, and then we comped them into Santa Monica. So so that was kind of that's how we had to make it work. Having them overlap a little bit as they went through definitely makes a difference as far as selling the shot. So so we added the camera bobble a little bit later to make it a little bit more. Kind of the whole film had that feel, so they didn't want to have it all locked down.
It did. We had a menu of camera bobbles that we had to choose from, and the director assigned a particular bobble for a particular set of shots.
Right. Yeah. So go ahead to the next piece here. So here's another shot. Here's a close-up, and go ahead and that's the final shot there. And again, a little bit of bobble added, comped, and color. That's not a good shot there. So here's another one, and again, this is him in front of the what needs to be the ocean. And the thing to look at with all these, this isn't a big effects film, so this is not Transformers. This is just a little drama. And I think there's about 220 visual effect shots that were when the dust settled. We didn't do quite all of them. I think Kwesi did some of them on his own, but I think we did nearing 200.
I think we hit 200.
About 200 of them, and those birds. Some of the birds looped because some of the clips went too long. But anyway, we'll
the footage they had of the ocean at Santa Monica wasn't very long.
You know why it wasn't very long? I was there. It wasn't very long because we may or may not have, we may have stolen the footage. So what do you mean by stolen the footage? We just said, rather than going through lots of the paperwork oftentimes required for these kind of things, sometimes you just take the camera out and turn it on. And so, we took the camera out and turned it on. So it was good.
So the result
of that, big F-23 that you take out. Yeah, it was like, you set it down, you record it.
So the result of that for this scene, which I think had 23 shots, separate shots to him, was in using the same set of backgrounds, we had to paint out the birds so that we wouldn't see the same birds going by all the time. We could let them go through once, but never again.
Yeah, exactly. So there was a lot. There was paint fix. That's all I got to say. Lots of paint fix. So here's another shot of a green screen that's not optimum. And, and again, we didn't have quite enough green screen to cover both of them, so we had each one of them do their half of this process here, and then you can see him. They did it together to make sure that the motion was really felt like it was the same. And then here's the actual composite here. Now we actually shot it in the same location. So this choice was, let's not roto them. We didn't want to roto them. Let's shoot them in front of green screen in the same location, so we got the same lighting and everything else. In retrospect, we ended up, the green screen was bad enough that I think we ended up rotoed them anyway. It probably would have been easier if we had just rotoed them.
A lot of it was rotoed.
Yeah, there was so much of it rotoed that we probably could have just rotoed them. And if we had done this again, we probably would have saved ourselves the trouble and just done a roto. That was our lesson for the shot. Go ahead. Now here's a shot. Again, we never were able to get the actors to get scheduling out to. We were never able to get to a point where they could go to Santa Monica or go to LAX. So we so what we did is we did this. So we were finishing up a day, and you can see we found the right timing. One of the things we use Google Maps to figure out what the lighting should be. You know, we use Google Maps to actually figure out to make sure that the lighting was correct. Now, this is not a green screen that you would normally want to key because you can see that it has a little shading. That's a light pole, I think, that's in there. It was not an optimum situation. This was actually the one that, you can see the little schmutz on the one side? Yes. This is the one that I threatened to, after we used it this one time, this is the one that I threatened to burn. So anyway, so this was the shot. And here's the final shot here. And anyway, so this is the, and what we did here is, of course, we shot LAX behind them. So that's a shot from Terminal 2. And then we comped them. And we had to do a little bit of roto to kind of clean that up. Now you'll see that the bottom area is missing. This is before we painted in the, oh, no, it isn't. This is because this has already been cropped.
Well, this is cropped to 235. Right. And this is painted in. The amount of road that was actually in the background plate, we were missing, say, the bottom lane and a half.
Right. Right, and so we had McKay paint that back in for us.
Right. We found a blank spot in the road, painted it down in the bottom, and instant road.
Here's a question here. Hold on, let's see here. Let me refresh here. In the recent ones, you're talking about coordination. How did you coordinate lights reflecting on the actors' faces with the images from the green screen reflections from headlights while the green screen picture is driving down the street? We didn't coordinate it at all. So there was just a guy going like this, and then there was stuff going past, and we didn't try to coordinate it all. It turns out it all worked fine. Like we thought about it. We talked about trying to figure out how we were going to do that. Turns out that things going by, what you're getting lit from oftentimes is not really, like what lights the car is oftentimes an overhead light or something else that you're not going to actually see. It's not going to actually be driven from something behind them. That was what we realized when we were like doing tests. There's very rarely, usually what hits them on the light comes later, and so you're not really connecting it, especially on a short clip. And if there was a key actor coming in that had to interact with them, that's important. But if they're just sitting there talking to each other and there's stuff going on in the background, no one's going to notice.
And the backgrounds were so busy with sporadic, very bright sources that you just weren't keeping track of what was going by.
Absolutely. So here's a shot where we shot this in Again, we couldn't get her to come to LAX, so we took LAX to her. So this was a shot we shot of the doors. And by the way, we did go through a lot of licensing to be able to shoot at LAX. Obviously, the security's a little higher than the beach. And so here's a shot. We shot her at the same time we shot that car. You'll notice that we flagged her so that she came from the dark area to the light area. So you can see she's in dark here. So there's a flag above that frame that she walks out from under. And again, we use Google Maps to figure out we use Google SketchUp, I'm sorry, to figure out exactly what direction the sun should be at a certain time in LA, so that we could figure out when we would shoot, so that the shadows would go the right direction.
I love SketchUp.
Yeah, SketchUp is awesome. So here's the shot. And so that's her coming out. So that's getting her to LAX. And the dude that walked in front of us was not planned, as I remember it. I remember watching it. Now, maybe someone in the crew planned it. I didn't plan it, because I saw the dude walk in front of the camera. I was like, really? You didn't notice all the cameras? But it turned out to be awesome.
It is. And we rotoed him. Yeah,
we rotoed him out. And but it created an interactive element in front of her. And anyway, when we got the plate, I was just like, I can't believe this guy walked out in front of her. But it turned out to be really great. So
didn't he know you had a license?
What?
Yeah, didn't he know you had license?
Exactly. Not only that, you're only allowed to shoot in Terminal 2. So while you're doing your part, and there is another one. You don't have my drive hooked up. That was a different keynote than what I gave you, because there was other ones with breakdowns. But you don't have that one, do you?
You have your drive.
I have my drive back. Anyway, let me give it to you and see if there's another. It's okay. We'll just go into the thing. So Kevin's going to jump into it. He's got a couple other frames to show you here. Yeah, so
well,
I'm going to answer some questions.
Okay.
No, let's do this. But we're going to show you a couple other clips here. But let me say a couple other things. Answer a couple questions. How big of an impact improvement do green bulbs have over white bulbs on the same green background? It does make it a lot easier to key. I mean, you can obviously, if they're too close to the background, go ahead and use the white bulbs. But if you can use green, it makes it much easier to key.
It does.
Yeah, you get kind of spoiled when you get used to it. We actually have to get. We've been learning we have to take some of the people that we're training and make sure that they have to shoot really bad footage, because there's a little bit we're so particular about the green screen that when someone gets a remotely bad green screen, people that are in the office oftentimes are like, there's a leap in the path. I don't know how to handle this, because it's not challenge. Because for most of our keys, it's like, okay, yeah, that works. And we really worry about the details of all the little hairs and everything else. We're not used to worrying about there's a huge variation in the green screen, but we're doing more of that because
right, when it doesn't just pop out, there is an automatic reflex just to go, oh.
It's not automatic, but you know what they say: if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. Right. So, anyway, back to basics. I'm just starting out in green screen shooting. I've got a light kit with softboxes and a light with an umbrella reflector. I'm trying to light the screen and actor using 3-point lighting. Would 4 lights be better? Are softboxes okay to light the screen with? Is there an optimal temperature and brightness? This is a very small studio, the size of a bedroom. When I used to say it was the size of a bedroom, it was my bedroom. So anyway, but let's see, I think I might have missed some of that question. But anyway, it got cut off here. So the thing is that generally you want to, if at all possible, you want to be able to light the background, the screen behind you separately from the foreground. So lighting both the screen and the actor with 3 lights is going to be very difficult. Now you can get away usually with 4. You're going to give the actor a key and a fill, and then you're going to do instant 2-point lighting, and then have the screen getting the other 2 lights. Usually the softboxes is what you would use. But then you're taking the softboxes away from the actor, which they look really good when we've got softboxes. Well, not softboxes, but we've got these divas with what Kevin calls shower caps. That's not really what they're called. That's the joke in the office.
The real name just sounds pretentious. It's French.
So the part that I was missing there with the whole thing here, let me see if I can see the whole thing, is that you're having a Jedi-like aura around it. I can only assume that what you're saying is you have a white edge that's going around the actors. If you're having a white edge, that probably means that your sharpening is on your camera. So a lot of these cameras have sharpening turned up a bit, and that's a real problem because sharpening it's basically looking for a dark edge over a light edge, and then it makes the light edge lighter and the dark edge darker. And green screen has a huge contrast there, so it goes, oh, I should make a big white edge that goes down there. Well, the thing is that it's a white edge, and you can't key that. So it's just it's just white. So what you want to do is typically turn your sharpening down a little bit on your cameras. You can turn it down a little bit and not do any effect, and you'll have a little bit of a light edge, or you can turn it off. But then you have to remember that you have to resharpen it before you put it out there. So you'll key it, and then you'll sharpen it back up again. There's nothing. Your software can definitely sharpen as well as the camera can. So you can always put that back in, but it's another step in the process.
And the edges are where all the action is.
Right.
You don't want anybody messing with that until you can.
Right. It's easy. Anybody. I mean, literally, almost anybody. I think my 4-year-old son could probably key most of the background and get the core. I remember I've been working with him a little bit. So he's I told him he's got this big hair, and I'm like, soon you'll be able to key that hair really well, son. So on your iPad. And anyway, so anyway, so the core mat and all the area around is really easy to get rid of. It's the edges that's where all the money is, and so having a sharpening effect to it is really a big bummer. Do I know of any good websites to get good stock footage for green screening? So I'm assuming that what you're talking about is stock footage for what's going to go behind the actors. Typically, you're shooting green screen because you want to have something specific in the foreground. Now, iStock photo is kind of where we pretty much buy everything. When it comes to video footage or stock, that's where we at least start. ArtBeats is another great solution. So those are the two that I pick: iStock and ArtBeats. Both owned by Getty. Getty's another, but that's where we tend to go for most of our stock footage. Is one of those two places. Can you just gel on top of regular bulbs? Is it the same effect as green? I wouldn't say it's the same, but it's similar. You can put gels on the front of the bulbs.
Sure, it's similar. It's just not as bright.
Yeah,
and we've had to do that on occasion.
Yeah, so we've put green. We've gelled them green. It's just that you're losing a certain amount of light, half stop to get it there, and you're not losing out with the lights. Right. All right. In fact, the lights are so bright on the green that we're very rarely usually turning them down, not turning them up. What's your favorite camera for shooting green screen? I still like our 950 a lot. The F23. I mean, the 950 and F23 and the red. Those are the ones that we like to shoot on.
I'd say so. Yeah.
I mean, those are the three that the 950 is something we have internally. We ended up not setting it up for tonight, which had a lot of moving parts, and so we decided not to. But what you saw me getting keyed live with was just a little EX3 or EX1, and we have a 950. The big thing is that you want to have a low color sample if possible, or a low color compression or color scaling. So you want to see, if you can, you want like a 444, 444 camera, which is F950. F23, F35. Red is kind of a 444 camera. It's shooting a bear pattern and kind of pulling stuff back together. I wouldn't say it's quite. I mean, it is a 444 camera. You just lose a little bit of spatial resolution, but you're bringing in 4K when you bring it down to what we tend to. Our pipeline is 1080p, and so when we bring it down there, it's a pretty gorgeous plate.
It certainly is.
A lot of people like the look of the red. There's just a certain quality to it, and you can see it when you do it, and I think it's a gorgeous thing. We shoot a lot, maybe 10 hours. For a long time, we were shooting 10 or 15 hours a month of red footage, and so that's something we're pretty comfortable with. And I would say if push came to shove and they said you could have one of those cameras at a green screen, I'd probably end up getting the red, especially the Epic, which
that would be pretty awesome.
Brian Scabelli's supposed to come out, and we're supposed to have one of these shows with an Epic in the not too distant future, so he's got his. So not that I'm jealous. Advanced technique. I noticed your water glass looked okay, but of course the background wasn't properly distorted. Could that be done in post? And if so, what would you use to do it? Yes, you could create a displacement map with the gray scale image. So you'd separate this out, and then you use the grayscale that's grabbing that as a displacement map to distort the image somewhat. and that would probably be enough. What it would do is basically where things are more clear, it's going to be where the glass is more clear, it's going to have more or less distortion, and where it's less clear, it's going to have more distortion. But using a displacement map based on that grayscale image is usually the best way to do it. It'd be hard to do that live.
Right. Well, there's a dirty way to do it, and we did this on one project a couple of years ago, where the actor was holding up a gem, a diamond, just a big oversized novelty diamond, and he was in front of the green screen and waving it around in front of his face, over the green screen, back in front of his face. So in motion, we didn't have much time to try to figure out displacement map or anything like that. So we just put a little distort effector,
right,
and hand animated it, right, to follow the diamond around.
And it's good enough.
And it worked great.
If you're going to be really slow and that's the focus, you're going to want to figure out something really complicated. But that is yeah, definitely a good cheat.
And the audience probably would never have noticed, but right, we would have.
Yes, exactly. What about shutter? Sometimes motion blur is terrible. High shutters look bad. Edges aren't smooth. Yeah. So shutter is a big problem, and you know, you will sometimes lose that, especially if you don't have it. This is where having a great green screen is important, because you can be much more gentle with the edges when you've got a good green screen, and you're not bashing it just to get rid of the fact that this side is way less lit than that side, or this piece is way less, or things aren't lit well. A bad green screen means you have to make lots of compromises that mean that you're going to press down on your edges to get rid of the green, but now you've given up all the detail, and you're especially going to have that kind of problem with motion blur. You can get good motion blur, and you can get good hair from an HD signal if you've got a good screen.
If anybody has had the symptom of webby hands and webby fingers, that's the problem.
Yeah, and and a lot of times, and if you don't do that, then you have to go back and do some real cleanup. And we're going to talk in the future. We're going to break down one of these shots, and in a future episode, we'll actually we'll do some more green screen stuff here. I've not used Conduit. How does it work with green screen footage in Conduit tie-in with Final Cut? So Conduit was originally developed as a plugin for Final Cut, and it's still, so what you're going to see it here inside of Motion, but Conduit inside of Final Cut allows you just apply you apply it as a filter, and then you can do the whole composite. You'll see a pretty complex composite here inside of Conduit. And so it actually lets you do all that work inside of Final Cut. The reason that we got really interested in Conduit and talked to Polly about it and everything else was because we had a lot of editors that didn't want to go all the way out to Shake to do their nodal compositing. And so and we figured, well, let's just do it in Final Cut with the GPU compositor, which lets us work in near real time. And so it made it a lot easier. So that's actually how that works. Do you want to go ahead? Let's go ahead and, you're going to show them a couple elements here. So. Oh, and this is something, so yeah, we did this. This was a frame, an exploding frame that was generated it was motion tracked in PF-Track, I believe, and then it was, and then the frames themselves are in Cinema 4D, and then they're tracked in and composited in Motion.
QuickTime 10 is getting upset about having both of these running at the same time.
There you go. That's fine. Go ahead and close that. And then let's show the, we used a new computer and we didn't put QuickTime 7 back on. There's the alpha channels that were created by the particle system. Okay, go ahead and let's go to the, and here's the rain that we created. Oh, before you go to the motion. So we created this, we decided to shoot the plates that you saw earlier we had rain outside, but we decided not to put it on the actual window because we thought that it would be too, we just thought it would be too much to key. So what we did here is and we somehow, we didn't shoot very good behind the scenes footage, oddly enough for us, and then we lost the footage that we did shoot, and it was one of the few times we've lost footage. I think it just never got to the archives. It was like it was shot by an intern and then never really made it all the way out. What we did here, you want to explain a little bit of that process?
Sure. Well, we had a big sheet of glass. It was probably 3 feet by 4 feet or so, if I remember. Just about as big as I want to handle without injury.
Yeah, exactly.
So we propped it up horizontally on a couple of tables. tinted it with some black Duvetine.
Black cloth.
Black cloth. We lit it from above, and then underneath is where we put the red camera.
And we kind of lit it from the side, as I remember, like it was kind of in the tent.
Yes.
From like above it, but to the side, so that it would only pick up the edges.
Correct.
And not light the glass itself.
So at one end of this tent, we had a big fan.
Mm-hmm.
And there was us standing next to the big fan with little bowls of water and little eyedroppers and spraying them into the stream of air.
So that's what you end up with, is you end up with this little, this high-speed fan pushing this little water across there. And what this gave us was a great little map that we could use there. And so so go ahead and open Motion, and we'll show you how this all gets put together. And we've got a question: is there a latest version for Final Cut 10? And we are efforting that at the moment, and we're pretty excited about that. Is that? Yeah. So that is coming, and we're almost ready for that. So it says, I'll be shooting a young lady with very fine and very blonde, almost white hair. Any issues that I should watch for? And if so, how would you handle it? Her hair is not frizzy, but it's not very thick, and I would say wispy. Number one is, with that kind of hair, I would definitely do some test shooting, and that's one of the few times, that kind of hair is one of the few places where I would think about blue screen, depending on what she looks like and everything else. That's you have a lot of luma contrast there, and you may not have it. That's one place that if I was going to do a lot of that, I would probably do a little bit of a test shoot a week or two before and make a decision about how well you can key it. It will be more difficult to key that white blonde. That is the one like Achilles heel of green screen oftentimes. So definitely something to consider. But that's there's not many exceptions where I'll say, oh, you should think about blue screen. That's one of them. You can key it, but you're going to have an excellent green screen to do that. If you have any variation in the green screen, you're going to end up clipping her hair.
Now, we have had a couple of people come through with hair like that, and after keying them, I notice that when I walk down the street and see people go by, I think easy to key, hard to key, easy to key. Oh no, oh man, that's a hard one.
Yeah, it was like, oh, that person would be really hard to key. You know, yeah, I have said that. You know, some people, we've been looking through models and they say, what do you think of this model? And I've gone, it should be pretty easy to key. That does become a requirement.
And I found the key, the creating of the mat wasn't necessarily the hardest part. It was dealing with the green spill.
Yeah.
So the unspill node, with hair that has so much yellow in it, it was drastically changing the color of her hair.
Right, because the unspill node's pulling all that green out, right. And because there's a lot of yellow in the hair, as you pull that green out, you're also pulling some of it away, and the hair kind of tends to turn grayish.
Right. So we had to do some very special masks to just protect the hair from the unspill node, but
right.
yet not protect it enough that it wouldn't be green.
You got to get some unspill out, just not all of it. So yeah, that was the issue. So here you can see this is the clip in Motion, and people ask us why we did this in Motion, and the reason is that we had a very, very short time frame and a very very short time frame to do this stuff in, and a very low budget. And what we couldn't afford to do is what we could not afford to do is actually go through the process that literally the time it would take to bring it into Shake, which at the time was our primary compositor. If we had to bring these all in and put them all together, also the level of user that we'd have to bring in would be more expensive from our perspective, and so we needed something that someone with less experience could work in, and also something that could be done very, very fast. And because Motion worked literally 50 times faster than Shake at the time, because it's all GPU on this computer, going out to many monitors for this broadcast, this won't be very real time. But on one of the computers that we were working on at the time, this could loop.
Right, we could run it real time.
A real time loop to watch it, which is really important when you're adding all these little details to see if there's any shimmering or any of those pieces there. So so go ahead and show the editor here. So this is what the conduit node structure for this shot looked like. Chris, did we put the Final Cut X version? Is that the beta's on DV Garage's site? Yeah, beta is up, so if you're listening to this and you're interested in testing for us, conduit for 64-bit conduit for Final Cut 10, you can go up to dvgarage.com and download that for free.
Now, just like the key, the simple key here, oh, this is pretty big. Just like the simple key here, it starts with foreground.
This is how our story begins.
So this is just like what we were shooting you
Right.
with earlier. And the first node in the chain is the color difference node.
Right.
So that's the raw color difference matte. So in this shot, notice that the core is white, like it should be. We don't want
Right.
to see through her. But the background still has some speckle in it.
Right.
So do you remember why we didn't push that all the way to black?
We made the decision that there was a couple things. One of the things was we felt like there was a tint in the windows, and we thought that what we didn't want to do is actually have we wanted to still have that tint apparent. You know, we didn't want it to be perfectly clear, otherwise it would look like they rolled down the window.
Right.
And it was raining. And you could actually see a little bit of the reflection of them in the windows against the
Right. There was her reflection, the
Right.
interactive lighting that swept across,
Right.
picked up on the window itself, the film on the window. Right.
So then we what do you
Oh,
have?
and the little decals on the window back here, we wanted to make sure we saved those.
Yeah.
So that's the main matte for her.
Mm-hmm.
There was a secondary matte that we had to do. We had to take care of the rear view mirror or the
Right.
side mirror.
Because this is going to be a different reflection, different brightness. You know, all those things are going to be different. And while Kevin's doing that, we had have you ever used the Edius or Edius from Grass Valley, and how do you compare it to Final Cut? And I've never used it, so I don't know.
I don't either.
Okay, on to and I'll get to your next question in just a second, but I just thought I'd answer that while you were adjusting. Go ahead.
So we made a static garbage mat around that side view mirror.
Mm-hmm.
The camera's not moving, so we don't have to roto anything, but we want to treat that area of the plate differently.
Mm-hmm.
So here we've taken, here's the mat I showed you before. Here's another levels node on a parallel chain where we're just paying attention to the mirror.
Right.
The rest of the mat is no good for what we want to do with it, but we just want to take that mirror, and now we'll multiply it with that mask that we made to isolate it. Then, there we go. We've got the background that we wanted to put into that mirror.
Right.
They
And so these are all inputs. Those yellow ones that you can see there are inputs there.
Right. Not only did they shoot, well, for all the street shots that they shot from the back of the truck, we were able to use some for the side mirror or some for the windows.
Right.
But pretty much have our pick of what we wanted to use for the mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
Now, on that mirror too, we have to put some rain. So we have a static image of some rain.
Right.
You notice when you drive, you're not having rain running down your mirror.
Right.
So you wouldn't have rain flowing down your mirror. You just have a static view. So there.
And you do notice this when you do these shots.
Right.
Start paying a lot of attention to that.
So there's the background masked with the matte we just showed you, screened with the rain element.
Go ahead and show them that so they can see it.
It is. It's just a little dim.
Okay, so yeah, it's a little dark on this monitor. Go ahead.
So back to the main mat. What we needed to add to this was a background, but we also needed to add the rain.
And one thing we ended up doing with a lot of these backgrounds is there's a lot of shake, and the shake didn't necessarily go with what we wanted it to go to, you know. And so a lot of times, if things were too shaky, we tended to stabilize some of the footage.
Right.
And then we'd also sometimes track that back to re-add some of that shake. And a lot of times we added the bobble back
Right.
by hand.
So the rain plate that you saw a little bit ago, we split up, we cherry-picked the parts of the rain plate that we wanted to match the movement of the car. If the car was sitting still, the rain's going to be flowing down, or not at all, depending on what scene it is. In this case, the rain is flowing from right to left, so we wanted to make sure we have the right amount of rain, the right amount of motion. There are two mirrors in this car, or two windows in this car. There's the section on the left, the section on the right, and the windshield. So we chose two rain plates, two sections of our plate, and screened them over the background. Then combined them with our foreground. So now we have the foreground, we have the rain, we have keyed to the main through the mirror, through the window background, but notice the mirror is still missing. So we come down to the final overnode and pop in the mirror.
There you go.
And we're done.
And so, and if people have questions, go ahead and post them on the website. We have one other question. What are some other situations that you would choose blue screen over green screen, and why? Why is green your default? And the reason that green is the default is that you, when it comes to green, is that you have a lot more data inside of green. So 70% of a YUV image, which is really what these cameras are recording at, is 70% of that is actually going into the green channel. Very little of it is going into the blue channel, and most of it is really gook. So you know, you just really are working with the worst channel of the three. There's a lot of good data in the red channel because that's where our skin tones are. There's a lot of energy spent on the green channel because that's where some of our skin stuff is coming from, and a lot of other things in the background will notice those things. And the blue gets kind of beaten up, and so you really want to. You can use the blue. It's not like you can never use it, but logos, specific clothing that you absolutely have to wear. And I've even done stuff though where I've done ones where I had to have a green shirt on with a green logo, and we made a blue version of it. And then I saw it in a green screen and got keyed, and then we just used a color correct to change the blue back to green, and it worked great. So so that's another option there. I wouldn't necessarily suggest that all the time, but you know, absolute things that you have to use green for. Plants. Sometimes we've keyed a lot of plants.
We have
that are just darker green in front of green, but depending on what their color is.
And often those have to be, they will key fine, they just have to be keyed differently. So they just have to have a rough roto mask to treat them differently.
Right. Other questions? If you have any other questions, go ahead and post them onto the website. Oh, here we go. DSLR, what do you think about shooting using a 5D or 7D to do the green screen? I think you can do that, and I've seen it done. In fact, we have some footage laying around that's DSLR in front of a green screen. You can key it actually pretty well because it's HD, but it is very compressed. And so you, once again, when you're using heavily compressed footage, like we very rarely or almost never key the footage that's coming straight to the cards on these EX1s. We're taking the uncompressed HD SDI, we're recording to Apple ProRes HQ, and recording that, or recording from a 950 in Apple ProRes 4x4 or uncompressed, and keying that. The problem with the DSLR is you're going to capture something that's highly compressed. So if you've got variations, you're going to end up with all kinds of blotchiness. You're not going to shoot a blonde in front of a green screen and get a good key. You know, those are the kind of things that are going to be problematic. So you can do it, but you want to be kind of careful. And I think that there's a lot of great options, whether it's the F3 or the FS100 or the, a lot of these other ones that are coming out at a very low price that are going to provide some great options. You can, once again, you can do it, but you just have to be really good at your green screen. If you have other questions, post them up here. Otherwise, we're going to go into the after show soon. We're actually not doing a 3-hour stream. We thought we'd keep it simple and to the point, and hopefully that was useful for you guys. If you have other questions, though, you've got a couple minutes or a minute or two, and then we're going to go ahead and move into the after show and start talking about this show, which is what we do in the after show. Of course, coming up next, we have next week we are going to be going back into the world of Studio, MacBreak Studio. So we're going to have Mark and Steve are going to be here. So we're going to be talking all kinds of Final Cut, answering your questions, going through some stuff, and talking.
I can't wait. Having
another round table. We're very excited. And so they're going to be here next week. And the week after that is This Week in Photography. So we're going to be doing that the following week. And then September, we're still trying to figure out a couple of details, so we'll let you know how that goes. And so there's a little bit of up in the air. With This Week in Photography, by the way, I think we're planning to actually have a studio shoot. where you get to watch it and talk to the photographer. And
That sounds great.
yeah, that should be really, really fun. So that's coming up in 2 weeks. But 6 o'clock every week we're doing something, and so so stay tuned for that. And let's see here if we let me pop up here and make sure that I'm not missing anything. But otherwise, I think we're gonna drop into it. And if you want to know when we're doing all this stuff, the best thing to do is follow Pixelcorps or follow me, Alex Lindsay. Mine is a much more foolish Twitter following to follow. Pixelcorps is just the facts, just what we're doing. So so those are the 2 different options that you have to check this stuff out. And so I think, Carolyn, did you see anything else going by? Okay. So okay, so we'll do an after show here in just a second. Someone posted a picture to my Twitter account. Well, there you have it. So anyway, so let me before we go any further, I just want to thank you all for watching. And this has been Pixelcorps Live and Inside the Black Box Live. And we'll see you again watching this show in a month, but we'll see you every Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.